All right, so we're finally done with the landscaping brick molds. That took a month. So the rest of this video is about me building those things. And my light just shut off. Did you see that? Come on, guys. There. Okay. What's going to shut off next? I don't know. Yeah, I spent a month building all 12 landscaping brick molds. And you can see right here. These guys. So you can see the open hole here is just in the shape of a landscaping brick. The same you would buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. And they got this little angle so that they'll tile together and make nice curves and stuff in your garden, for your flower gardens or vegetable gardens or whatever. And there's a little lip here on the back so you can stack them up vertically, and they'll catch, and the ones on top will be held back by the ones below it. That way you can use these landscaping bricks to do sort of like semi-retaining walls or small raised garden beds with the back material is not going to push the bricks out of place. So it's the same stuff you buy at Lowe's and Home Depot. That's what that is. The reason why is because I've got a friend who's getting into the cement business, and he's putting together some really interesting cement technologies, and I wanted to support him. Plus, he's also getting into land development for tiny homes, and I've told him it doesn't matter. I need these for my garden, and so if I make them for him, and then he in turn makes some bricks for me to help me with my landscaping, and then he can feel free to use these for his land development. He's a guy that does city and county approval title land development for sewer systems. So he'll get the designs and the plans approved by the city or the county or the state or whatever, so that they can actually be approved to go build those site plans. And he's got a plan, he's got an idea to develop tiny home subdivisions with maybe even a tiny home HOA, I mean. So I don't know how it's going to work, but I figured I'd support him in this startup venture as much as I can. And yeah, we'll see what he does with these. I told him, like I said, it doesn't matter if you're getting into developing a subdivision or some sort of land development, you're gonna need landscaping bricks. Like, it doesn't matter if you buy them or if you make them yourself. If you're gonna be in the cement business, you may as well make them yourself. So I said, I'll go ahead and make them for you because I need them anyway. And yeah, so that's what that's all about. And the rest of this video is about me building them. So roll the camera for that. And oh, by the way, before I go into that, next I'm going to be back to working on grinding up scrap steel here in the garage. This chipper wheel, I've been trying to get that for 3 months, partly because the last 2 main videos have been me working on the garden, getting things up and going there. So now that all of that stuff is over and done, I've got a couple months here until springtime picks up, and then garden work will pick up again. But during these colder months, I've got some time, and I'm going to be using it to clean up the scrap metal here and the pile of scrap metal there, and we're just going to try to start cleaning this whole area up. So that's what's coming. But yeah, this is the end of the landscaping brick molds. There you go. And now to the part where we see the build. Roll camera. just a heads up that those landscaping brick mold frames and the brick molds were made out of treated 4x4 lumber, which was scrap from when I built my fence, my privacy fence. I built my own privacy fence for my house about 10 years ago, and all the scrap wood that came out of that build just sat here in the garage. You saw me get it down from the top. Some of it was down under the shelving, and before I built the shelving, it was over here in this pile, and some of it was alongside the house, right over here behind the trash bins and other stuff behind the fence, alongside the house, and there was a couple pieces that were behind the shed, all the way in the back of the property. Now, the ones that sat behind the shed sat out there. All of this stuff's been sitting around for about 10 years and hasn't been done anything. Well, when my friend started saying that he's going to do that land development, I said, you know, I got something I can maybe do with that. So I figured I'd use all that scrap for something, and that's why I made all these landscaping brick molds. So it ended up being useful. One thing, you saw me cut off all the scraps, put them in the wheelbarrow, chip it up, and put it around the tree and in some of my flower beds. And I know a lot of you are going to say, wait, time out. You can't do that. It's too toxic. It'll destroy the environment. Yeah, you're right. However, there is some scientific research that has been published that shows that the bacteria and the fungi and the mushrooms and stuff that live in the soils, and they chew and eat up that wood chips. However, you're going to say, no, they don't eat that up. It's too toxic. Time out. Actually, yes, they do. It has been proven by these scientific studies that these bacteria and the fungi, mushrooms, they adapt. And they adapt to eat and consume that toxic material and then feed it into the plants. And yes, I know it has arsenic. I know it has mercury and lead and some of these other really, really bad stuff for getting into ingesting into your body. But I'm not putting them into my tomato soil for my tomato plants or my herbs or any of that stuff. No, it's going into my flower beds and my tree, because I'm not going to eat my tree. I'm not going to eat my flowers. That stuff is just for the yard. And that mulch will never make it into my tomatoes. It'll never make it into my herbs. And once the fungi eat that toxic wood chips up, they feed it into the trees and it becomes the leaves for the next season or the next few years. And slowly it will dissipate into the environment. So when I put it and I chip it up like that and I put it into the flower beds and the tree mulch and that kind of stuff, that's the healthiest way to distribute of it and get rid of it. Because if you just put it in the landfill, then it leaches into the ground, into the groundwater, and it gets into the fish, bioaccumulates in the fish. People catch the fish and then they eat that, and then it's actually worse for the environment. So the fungi will naturally distribute that stuff into the environment. It's a much healthier way of disposing of that material. So yeah, do your research, do the science, and don't just say, wait, that's impossible, you can't do that, that's not healthy. That is actually the healthiest way of doing it. Do your own research. Make sure you study things properly. That said, I'm going to move over here to this other thing. We're going to get some bonus. I'm going to give you some bonus video of me cleaning for the wife unit. She asked me to clean up some additional stuff here in the garage before I call it quits back here to the grinder. So I'm going to work on that. You got some bonus footage for today. All right. See ya. Have a good one. Bye-bye.